So this is Ileana 60 years and back in the secret space programs resume of what I did in the programs. Originally, I had remembered 50 years through hypnosis regression and some shamanism techniques that I had learned while I was studying Native American shamanism. And that was a 2.5-year program where I learned past life regression and soul retrieval techniques. As well, I learned some more traditional hypnosis techniques, which I integrated into the Native American shamanic teachings. And when I incorporated those two together, I was able to start remembering my SSP memories in late 2014. So this was one of the first sets of things that I remembered. And the cover title page for this presentation is of a woman standing on a rocky type cliff looking out into the ocean towards a base or a city. And the woman is wearing an environmental suit or a spacesuit. And she's just landed on a newly explored planet that has a base built there. So that is symbolic to me of the secret space programs, their journeys in space exploration, because that's what these programs do. They explore space and colonize new planets. And I have two quotes here that I would like to mention. The first one is taking your first steps to the far-reaching stars, and that's space exploration. And the second quote is, these are new journeys going beyond known limits, because the space programs go beyond known limits or logic. They go beyond those two. Known limits and logic. It goes into outer space. It goes into secrecy. It goes into everything that is beyond current limitations on this planet Earth. Because it's new frontiers, basically. And there are different factions of the secret space program groups. There's Earth Alliance, Earth Defense Force, Mars Defense Force, Solar Warden, there's also the Notchtloffen, Dark Fleet, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, Time Corporations, and Solar Warden and Mars Defense Force are the ones that closely protect Mars and Earth from various species that are hostile in nature, perhaps. Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate develops the advanced technologies, as it always has. So there's many different faction groups. There's also the secretive shadow governments. And these groups either have contracted service agents, or they have kidnapped or abducted assets in the programs that are not willingly there. Linguistic Specialist, 14 years. Deciphered and translated different alien languages as well as code matrices in order to make sense of new ET languages from species visiting the Milky Way galaxy for the first time. Acted as a universal language translator at various Super Federation and Confederation ET meetings. Had language translator etheric implants inserted into the brain. Since there was a natural disposition for learning languages, the implants amplified the ability in order to be able to quickly translate any type of language into another language or English as needed in the meetings. Could tap energetically into any type of technology and access language database repositories, adding new information in about language subtext for writing or classifying language codes so they could not be hacked in the databases. Sometimes was required to have physical genetic alterations done in order to look like various humanoid ET species while attending Federation and Confederation meetings. Some ET species do not respect or even want humans attending the secret space program meetings and negotiations, so the language translators had to take on the close appearance of looking like the ET species in order to have access to the meetings and information being translated in the various languages. Afterward, when the meetings or negotiations were over, the genetic alterations would be removed from the Linguistic Specialist's human DNA and they would look like themselves again. Information Specialist, 16 years. As an intuitive empath and remote viewer, was able to do classified data gathering as well as informational research for the various levels of the departments in the secret space programs. Visited the space program facilities in bases on Earth as well as other planets like Mars, etc., to make sure proper security measures were in place so sensitive data could not be hacked or breached for unauthorized data dump releases in the mass media or on the internet. Worked on creating matrix sequence codes in order to classify information for specific military personnel access, only in terms of permission levels and the type of information that could be viewed by the lower and higher level employee personnel. Did data entry of mission records, personnel profiles, planetary galaxy telemetry information, and also routed messages or transmissions from the bases to off-world ships that non-terrestrial personnel were assigned to on missions. Now, I remember when I was on the interplanetary corporate conglomerate basis on Mars that I had been loaned out to their ICC space orbital platforms that are manned by crews. And these Mars ICC space platforms are cloaked. They're cloaked space stations that orbit in between Mars space and Earth space. And there's 4 of these space orbital space platforms. And they have hyperdrive engines so they can be moved for different orbital purposes. They can be moved from near one planet to another to orbit the planet, or even be in between orbits. They can actually move about in space. So that's something I remember clearly. There are about 52 clearance levels of classification in the secret space programs, sometimes even more. The data analyst had level 18 to 36 privileges in terms of having access to classified information. Information Specialist, 16 years, had access to the data glass pads, which are an equivalent to the tablet pads out currently on the Earth market. However, the glass pads are made of bendable and foldable plexiglass type technology, which can shrink down to different sizes so it can become small for portability advantages. While being stationed at various technology labs and informational centers in the secret space program facilities, there was access provided to holographic computer technology that had the glass screens for computers instead of the regular LCD or LED monitors that are used in Earth businesses. The glass holographic screens could slide down into the working stations, and when a button would be pressed, the screens would slide out again. While being an informational specialist in the secret space programs, there were times where the data analyst needed to be present during ET or even human interrogations of subjects. When persuasion tactics or the truth serum drugs would not work on individuals to extract informational data, then pain measures would be administered to subjects in order to acquire information properly. Most humanoid ET species do not like pain and cannot stand experiencing it. The ETs don't like to experience electrocution in particularly, so they don't like to be poked with electrical prods that have like 10 million watts of electricity whooshing in or zooming in through the ET species, because we all have electromagnetic frequencies and energies in our body. So, and if that electromagnetic frequency is interrupted, we can have neurological problems or brain damage. That can happen to ETs as well. So they don't like electricity in particular. They just don't. Sometimes blackmail tactics would be implemented as needed. The data analyst had sensitive or embarrassing information on key governmental, political, or military figures. The information would be used to expose these individuals if they did not cooperate in certain initiatives being implemented by either the secret space programs or the shadow Earth governments. Information Specialist, 16 years. The transparent touchscreen displays can receive input and display content on either side of the screen for two-way interaction, acting as communication mainframes as well as various holographic computer terminals, etc. These transwall screens are made up of two sheets of plexiglass with a clear holographic film. When not in use, the screen turns into a transparent glass. The transwall screens are activated either with the push of a button or the wave of a hand and can act as a television screen. Information Specialist, 16 years. SSP data analysts often have holographic computers and touchscreen displays in their personal quarters when they are stationed either on Mars bases or on ships. Often the data analysts are assigned to work on sensitive informational tasks that would require them to work alone and in isolation, so they would stay working in their quarters. The work hours analyzing and collating data to be entered into the data center databases on the Mars bases often takes a long time to do, as the work can be complex as well as classified. Informational Specialist, 16 years. There are children on the Mars colonies that are taught from a young age how to use holographic technology. These children are under constant guard by the colony military personnel, so the children cannot freely walk around the colony perimeters. There are SSP assets or service contract agents on the Mars bases or on the Mars colonies that have been on the planet for a very long time, so they have children. And the children are taught at a young age to use technology, because these children can be future assets and commodities of the secret space program groups. So that's why they're closely guarded. And Mars still has hostile environments where there are sandstorms or electromagnetic storms. So it could be dangerous to walk around outside at times, or the atmosphere is too low, not enough oxygen in certain parts of the planet. There's also different territories on Mars that are owned by different various species, like reptilians, mantids, spider species, insectoids, raptoids. So, and it can be dangerous for children to be wandering around outside the colony or base perimeters. Because sometimes the SSP groups will encroach on the ET's territory and try to take it over. And these other species resent this intrusion, so they will act. And it's not good to have children running around during, altercations between different species and human colonists. So that's why The children are guarded. And again, there's many different groups of the SSP. Solar Warden, Mars Defense Force, Earth Alliance, Earth Defense Force, Notchwafton, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, the Time Corporations, and all of these different groups have their own protocols. And while on the ICC Mars bases, I had noticed that they had the symbols of eagles, the Austrian eagle breaking the chains, and the iron German eagle, which were indicators that during the 1920s to 1940s, 50s, the Third and the Fourth German Reich had colonized Mars with their own bases originally. Then the US joined in, and other countries like Russia, Israel, Canada, Australia, England. And they do have multicultural interactions on the ICC bases, so it's not just Germans. It's Canadians, Americans, and other countries. It's become multicultural assets on the bases. So it's not just one set group, cultural group. Certainly the Germans still have their bases where it's just Germans, but Solar Warden and ICC bases are multicultural, basically. Aeronautical Specialist, 20 years. This was the Science and Technology Lab where the schematics were created for building the advanced aeronautical technology that is described in the next section on the right of this slide. Most of the technology is built off-world, either on Mars, the Moon, or other planetary colonies in the solar system. Built Neuralink implants, nanomachine interface communication technology for the different types of stealth spaceships, space fighter jets, space stations, and bases on the Moon and Mars. Some SSP assets had Neuralink implants in their brains that could interface with ship navigation systems, life support, holographic computers, etc. The Aeronautical Specialist would manufacture the neurological mind-to-ship interface systems so the Neuralink implants could connect with the ship technology. This technology was built for the Solar Warden program, other secret space fleets, and the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. Now, Solar Warden and the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, manufactures ship components for the Solar Warden ships, because Solar Warden and also Mars Defense Force, they're the programs that are security and patrols. They protect the Mars colonists and Earth from invasions by hostile species. So, alien species or extraterrestrial species. So, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate provides the advanced technology, especially for building ships for Solar Warden and Mars Defense Force. Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate are the main contractors for doing this. And Neuralink technology and other things. Because Solar Warden and Mars Defense Force are critical for planetary defense. Mars, Earth, and the various moons in our solar system and other planets that are colonized by human breakaway civilizations. Aeronautical Specialist, 20 years. While serving in the secret space programs, these were the following things that were seen. Human-built bases on the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Uranus, and Pluto. These bases are sometimes built in dome shapes, either on the surface of planets or in the inner parts of planets underground. The bases and trading ports are built from almost non-destructible and reusable alloy materials that can last for hundreds of years without being damaged by natural or man-made causes. Cloaked space stations orbiting close to Jupiter, Mars, and even Earth. Most of these space stations are either used for negotiation or trading for goods and services type meetings. Human colony cities on Mars, Moon, and other habitable planets or moons in the Milky Way galaxy and other galaxies outside the solar system. Seeing the building of fighter jets and spaceships powered by plasma core engines, warp drives, or crystal engines that utilize slipstream technology to travel out in space beyond the speed of light. Aeronautical Specialist 20 years. So on the left-hand side, top, there's the silver fighter cruiser, and that belongs to the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. It is their space fighter cruiser, and it goes beyond the speed of light with propulsion hyperdrives. On the top right-hand side, the white ship is Solar Warden Patrol Scout Ship. It has hyperdrive warp engines, and on the bottom in the middle is the Mars Defense Force fighter jet, and it has anti-gravity propulsion. Aeronautical Specialist, 20 years. The facilities on the Moon were round-shaped domes joined together by long corridors. These facilities were grayish-white, and there were clusters of them. The round dome facilities have about 38 levels in the first 3 domes with labs, offices, meeting conference rooms, medical bays, living quarters, and leisure green spaces. The underground facilities under the domes have military bases. Aeronautical Specialist, 20 years. These are the types of lab facilities, ship rooms, and living accommodations that were seen by the aeronautical specialist while serving on multiple assignments or missions while in the secret space programs. Sometimes the stationed assignments were terrestrial on planets, and at other occasions the missions were non-terrestrial on different spaceships or space stations. The assignments or missions could range in the tour of duty for a couple of weeks to 6 months or even years at a time, depending on the nature of the work that was being done. Classified missions would usually take longer to complete than more temporary assignments. And again, these missions or assignments could be through contract service, or it could be done through the abducted or kidnapped assets who were taken unwillingly and had no idea what they were signing up for. As the contract work, that is more, you are more willing in what you're signing up for. The 20 and back or the 60 and back, that happens either for that 20 or 60 years, or there's breaks where you're returned back to Earth and taken again for the 20 and back or 60 and back. So it could be done in the long span of time, or it could be cut in various time groupings. So it's not all done all at once. Cybernetics Lab Technician, 10 years. The Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate has various ICC bases on Mars to which are attached cybernetic labs. These labs take kidnapped humans and splice the body parts with cybernetic technology, creating living human cyborgs. This type of procedure is called transhumanism. Human souls can be extracted from individuals and put into other bodies. This is called the AI soul catcher technology, which holds an individual's soul in an electromagnetic field stasis container or holder until the soul is ready to be transferred elsewhere. As well, clones are created from the original human's DNA, where memory fragments are imprinted to the clone's brain to carry out SSP missions. The cybernetic lab technicians are responsible for doing quality control checks, for checking for testing and checking body parts, tissue organs, or bodily fluids to make sure the living matter is viable to be fused with cybernetic technological components when the cyborgs are being made. Now, I had seen all of this being done in the cybernetic labs. I had seen naked women being chained on hooks, hanging off the ceiling on chains and hooks while they were bleeding. So I had seen bodies of humans hanging on chains and hooks from ceilings of these cybernetic labs, and I call them meat labs on Mars. And these bodies could hang for days or hours while the cybernetic technology is being prepped to be fused with the body parts. So this is gruesome and horrific. And it's done on the Mars ICC labs that are attached to the Mars bases. So this violates all human rights. There's basically lawlessness out there on Mars. There's no human tribunals to police any of this stuff from happening. It just happens. There's no control over it. They're basically running around doing whatever they want in these labs. And AI is a huge component of it because it's cybernetic stuff. Cybernetic advanced technology that's used with humans to make cyborgs that become either scouts or soldiers with advanced psychic abilities. Cybernetics Lab Technician, 10 years. There are mind wipe devices called neuralizers which attach to the head with electrodes that then send electrical pulse frequency waves to the brain to create memory erasure in an individual. This can create temporary or permanent amnesia of memory loss. Specific parts of the brain can be targeted to either erase short-term memory or long-term memory patterns. An SSB asset's personality can be erased or altered completely during the electronic mind wipe procedure. As well, a new set of memories can be implanted where the old ones were erased in the brain. The neuralizer is capable of delivering either brainwashing or mind control protocols to the asset's brain based on the programming provided by the individual doing the mind wiping procedure. Medical facilities and secret space programs. The secret space programs have medical facilities with machines that can repair the human genome, curing diseases like cancers and other neurological or brain dysfunctions. There are holographic medical pods and portable Meditech units, which are healing technology that can regenerate or reconstruct missing body parts, grow organs, revive people from being dead, etc. As well, there is technology that can heal memories or experiences of traumatic events which can happen during missions. One of the advanced medical technologies is doing age regression, so individuals are returned to being young again, to their original age before they signed up to serve in the secret space programs. So the people no longer look old when their service contract is finished. Or in the case of unwilling assets that were kidnapped or abducted, they're still age regressed as well, and they're returned to the 0 point in time to looking young again. And I think there's time technology involved in reversing the age process and the mind wipes and the blank slating. I think there's time travel technology involved in this because there are time corporations that are in charge of the time travel technology, the quantum leap technology that's given to the various secret space program groups and factions. So I think time is altered in order to return somebody back to 0 point of when they were taken to be assets in the SSP, either as children or teenagers or grown-ups. I think the secret space programs mainly take assets in when they're 16 or 18 and to work for the secret space programs, but sometimes children are involved and even adults. And it could be recurrent abductions. So it might not just be once. It might be other selective missions. After they've been returned from being assets in the secret space programs, they're taken again. If they fit for a mission, if they're suited for something, they'll be re-abducted and taken again and blank slated, so they can't remember anything. Sometimes age regressed as well, depending how long they were out in space. If they were out for years at a time. SSP assets receive battle-ready training. Both female and male SSP assets are typically given battle-ready training, so they have basic self-defense knowledge of how to protect themselves in hostile environments like Mars, for example, where there are reptilian spider and mantis species which are not always friendly to human colonists. Battle-ready training includes being able to handle firearms like lasers, phasers, rail plasma rifles, guns, swords, throwing knives, battle axes, etc. Assassins are also trained in lethal physical hand-to-hand combat, psychic mind attacks, as well as mind control warfare, where targeted individuals can be killed with a directed psionic thought strike. And I, as an SSP ICC asset, had battle-ready training and was also trained as a lethal assassin. That was part of the training that I had. And I have various firearms weapons. Guns, semi-automatic rifles, swords, knives. I have all that training. And it comes naturally. It came naturally in the training process, because that's the training I had off-world, and I retained memories of that training in my Earth life in my late 20s. So the way I regain my memories usually is through shamanic techniques and some hypnosis regression. I combine the two to make a hybrid technique where I sit for hours sifting through my memories to figure out what it is. And I don't write it down in a journal. I type it all out on a computer in a PowerPoint presentation and Word document, and then I convert it into videos that are voice narrated or have music to them. And I always put in images to represent the likenesses of my write-ups, of what I experienced, what I went through in the secret space programs. So it's not just me talking here or just reading the write-up. There's images included that I find from the internet of what my memories and experiences look like, because I'm a very visual person. So I always have visuals with write-ups, and I don't research anything on the internet in regards to my own memories. I only include the stuff that's mine from my memories of event recall of what happened to me in the SSP. I don't want to be influenced or compromised by outside data from the internet in regards to other SSP experiencers or insiders in what they went through. I don't want to be compared to them, and I don't compare myself and my information to them. What I write here and what I narrate right now, voiceover, is purely my data from my memory recall, using shamanic techniques and hypnosis combined together. Through soul regression, retrieval, past life regression, that is where my techniques come from to get this information. Through studying years and years of Native American shamanism and a little bit of hypnosis on my own. As well, I've done quantum healing hypnosis. I've gone to a practitioner who was trained by Dolores Cannon and certified. So some of the information is from there as well that I've incorporated in this presentation, but mostly it's through hours and hours of meditation, and in sifting through all these memories and events of being in the secret space program, particularly interplanetary corporate conglomerate, and putting it in these presentations, which I edit and re-edit to make sure I have things right and correctly in terms of what happened and why, because I like to be thorough. So this is very time consuming and important to me. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes weeks to do these presentations and then to publish it to YouTube, to Facebook, and as a PDF file on my own website, because I like to provide video and also the write-ups for it. So that's how I do my work in terms of memory regression. Through past life regression exploration, through soul retrieval, through shamanic journeys, through astral travel. That's how I mainly get my memories back, and through forms of various hypnosis. And also talking to my higher self. I am in tune with my higher self, and that's how memory recall often happens as well. I also have a photographic memory, so I'm able to recall things easily of what has happened to me in my life. And so I can do this memory recall more easier. It's just easier that way. If you have photographic memory or eidetic memory, you remember things well, and you're able to put it down in terms of visuals and write-ups of whatever happened to you in your life. So I'm just lucky that way that I have that ability, and that I'm able to recall these memories and talk about it in videos, in podcasts, and make these presentations and to post them. This is how I provide an archive, a historical archive of what has happened to me in these programs, and make it available and out there, and I don't charge for it. It's free of charge. It's just a historical archival record of a secret space program experiencer's testimony of what they remember that has happened to them. So thank you and namaste.